Welcome everybody. Welcome to our Toastmasters meeting. I'm the president, Dennis. I'm glad to see you all here. We have all familiar faces, some familiar guests. Mindy, Veda, good to see you guys both here. We can start off the meeting having you guys say what you look forward to, since both of you we have seen at previous meetings.
Hey, I'm Mindy, and I just look forward to hearing everyone give amazing, inspiring speeches and to learn from you all.
Hi, good evening. I have recently switched careers, so I look forward to shamelessly promoting myself, as well as I have more time to come here now, and I'm going to see if it will fit in my schedule to join.
Great to have you all here. The mission of our club is to provide a mutually supportive and a positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. Speaking of communication, please be sure you are not communicating with this cell phone. This is the box that you don't want to be thinking of right now. So please have this on silent. Oh, okay, I'm doing it too. Put it on silent. Other tedious announcement. The book, everybody who is a role player, be sure you know who you're going to ask at the end of the meeting to fill in your role. Thank you. Let's get to business then. Let's give a warm welcome to our Toastmaster for the evening, Fraser Jones.
Good evening, fellow members, guests, and viewers at home. So, the first thing I'll be doing, I'll be introducing the role players. And for tonight, I'll start with the timer, Miranda Inaibo.
Good evening. Thank you everyone for being here. Tonight we have various speeches. We have the 2-minute to 3-minute table topic. And we will start with a green light when you qualify, a yellow light at halfway, and a red light when time is up. For our 5 to 7 minute speeches, green light at 5, yellow light at 6, and red light at 7. Thank you.
Next is our counter, Peter Armstrong.
As the counter, my job is to pick up on the use of words that fill space, and so forth. Also, but, or and, that kind of thing. So I will be carefully noting those down, and will give a report towards the end of the meeting.
Our next role player is Jean Symington Craig, the R counter for tonight. Oh, the grammarian, sir. The grammarian for tonight.
Thank you. Okay,
Sorry.
great. Thank you. My role as the grammarian tonight is, there are 2 aspects to it. One is to introduce the word of the evening, and that's on the backboard. It's recalcitrant. It's an adjective. It's also a noun. I'll use it primarily as an adjective. Synonyms are uncooperative, intractable, truculent. One definition is obstinately defiant of authority or restraint. And another definition is difficult to manage or operate. Use in a sentence: is the manager worried that the recalcitrant employee would try to undermine her authority? That's it. That's one. And then the second thing I'll be doing is I'll be looking for creative usages of the English language. I'm primarily looking for grammar and adjectives, things that you say well. And then also types of usage that I think maybe could be corrected a little bit and be improved. And I'll be giving a report at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Our general evaluator for tonight will be Dennis Gomez, and you'll be hearing him later on. And the greeter joke master is Miranda Inamo, and you'll be hearing her later on in the meeting. So we are going to move on to the prepared speeches, and for that I'll be calling the evaluator. For the first speaker, Hudaifa. So Arthur Gibson, he'll be reading the objectives for Hudaifa's speech.
Thank you, Fraser. Good evening, Toastmasters, guests, viewers at home. Tonight, Hudaifa Shadnawi will be giving a talk entitled, Who Pays for Free Online Services? He's doing project number 3 in the Competent Communicator Manual series, called Get to the Point. The objective is to organize a speech that conveys to us not only the general purpose of his speech, but a very specific purpose, and to organize it in such a way that we're persuaded, or we're informed, or we're inspired, or one of the general purposes is accomplished, and that he accomplishes his specific purpose also. Hudaifa is a Jordanian software engineer working at MUM. He's been in the USA for 5 years, living here with his wife and children, or child, I'm sorry. And we know him from his icebreaker to be a lover of calligraphy and lost the word. Please help me welcome Hudaifa Shadnawi.
Who of you use the free web service or online service? Almost everyone has at least Gmail, Hotmail, or Yahoo Mail. After this speech, you will be able to choose the right free online service. Fellow Toastmasters, our guests, and viewers at home, for every online service, there is someone pays for the cost of this service. Either you pay directly for these paid or commercial services, or you get this free web service. But for these free web services or online services, who pays? There is more than one option. The first one is the ads. Means you use Google search to search for something, and in the right side you find some advertisements. You have a Facebook account, and you find in the right side also some advertisements or even posts. This way, these companies, they can make money by showing you these advertisements. But this is not that simple, because they will not charge their customers or ads client for just showing these ads in your browser. You have to click on that ad, then it will be counted. So what they are doing is they use your information. They are mining your data to find you're interested in all these products. In the past, it was very simple. It just trace what you are searching in Google, and then you go to Facebook and you found some ads related to what you are searching for. But later on, it's more complex, it's more dangerous. Recently, if you go to Google privacy settings or policy, you will find they clearly say, we trace all what you are doing, means searching, calling, navigation, means if you use Google Map or etc. And they use your data. If you use Gmail, they read all your emails, they read all your YouTube search. Even if you have a Google Photos account, they process all your images and photos. So if you have, for example, in your, they can find, for example, your best brand. They can find if you like Nike from your photos, because you have cap, Nike cap, you have a t-shirt with Nike, so they start using this information to sell you these advertisements, because they know these ads are more likely for you. Things began more dangerous, because now Google knows about you more than what you know about yourself. Because you cannot remember what you have done in the past 3 months, other than past 3 years or past 10 years. But Google knows, because they have all these records about you. They say, we will not sell this information or direct information to anyone. We will not provide this information to any government agency or direct access to this information, but maybe indirect. Because when they sell this advertisement, they actually sell your information. With this kind of services, you know who pays. Actually, you pay from an indirect way, because you use this advertisement, and then this advertisement provider who pays to Google, and Google provide. Many people, they like that. They do not have any problem, because even if Google, they will not use that as a personal information, because they have million of records. So using this product is not that dangerous for a personal aspect, but it will be dangerous for organizations, for governments. The other kind of open source or free online services is that services used or developed by new developers or developers who look for a new opportunity. So they develop a product and just make it a private, an open source or a free, and their target, not you, but another company. They found that you have customers, you have clients, you have a good product, and they hire you to work with them. So I wish when you look for a free web service, you look or you search first about the ability of configuring your privacy settings before you sign up. Thank you.
Let's take 2 minutes, timer. Please give us 2 minutes to fill out the evaluation. So next we'll have evaluator Will Burns, who will be reading the objectives of for the next speaker, Emery.
Emery Styron is doing Project 1 from the Entertaining Speaker Advanced Manual. His objectives are to entertain you, the audience, by relating a personal experience, and to organize his speech for maximum entertainment impact. Emery Styron is a journalist who lives in Mount Pleasant. He has not found animal ownership rewarding, except as a source of column and speech material. The title of his speech, What the Goat Taught Me. Please join me in warmly welcoming Emery Styron.
Thank you, Will. Toastmasters, guests, and viewers worldwide. Back in the late 1980s, I had the breathtakingly brilliant, labor-saving idea that I would get a goat to clear the brush behind my house and keep down the grass in this huge, hilly back lot that I had to mow. I happened to be the editor of my hometown weekly paper back then, so it was a simple matter to put a note in my personal column. Goat wanted. How many of you think that this was a brilliant idea? How many of you have ever owned a goat? That does not compute, at least not with my experience. Well, I was young, dumb, naive, and my readers were shrewd, and they saw me coming. So when I put that notice in, it wasn't but a day or two until I came home from work and found a little brown goat tied to my back porch. And on one of his horns was taped a note. It's all yours. No return needed. About the best thing I can say of my experiences for the next few weeks is that they gave me a lot of column material. You know how a retired person will often say, I'm so busy, I don't know how I had time to work. Yeah. Well, I was sort of like that. I said, I wonder what my life was like before I had a goat. I really couldn't remember. The very first day, I was an hour late for work because of the time I spent disentangling the goat from its rope. And the next morning, my neighbor Jim came over leading my goat. The goat had pulled up its stake and wandered over into Jim's horse pasture that night. Jim said, "I think your goat has a broken ankle." Oh, I wasn't going to hear that. I made that goat walk around until he quit limping. And he also said, "I believe that goat needs milking." The next day, another neighbor comes over. She disentangles the goat from its rope. And then she proceeds to tell me about the Lions Club in my town, of which I was a member. Years earlier had a tradition where if a member missed 3 straight meetings, they would tie a goat in his front yard. And already I began to see how that would be a heck of an attendance incentive. Something we may want to consider at the next board meeting, Dennis. And she mentioned, by the way, I think that goat needs milking. Now, to be fair to the goat, it did make some headway on the brush in the backyard, but it wasn't keeping up with the mowing. So I hired this disabled fella in town who mowed to catch up on that. And he did a good job on the hillside, but he said, "Hey, I think that goat needs milking." Then that Saturday, I was down at the post office getting my mail, and I ran into a middle-aged gentleman in town, Clyde. And Clyde says, "Hey, Emery, are you drinking a lot of goat milk?" He says, "I hear it makes you a lot better lover." I said, "Well, Clyde, I don't believe I need that. But maybe you do." And he says, "Well, tell the truth, my love life could use a little boost. Maybe I could use a gallon or 2. I said, "You can have all you want if you'll come and milk the goat." Well, I think the last straw for me was when my 11-year-old daughter, the one who said, "I'm not going to touch that smelly old goat," had a change of heart. There was tornado warning. She went out in a thunderstorm and tied the goat up in the garage. So as I spent 30 minutes disentangling the goat from the bicycles and the rakes and the shovels and the hose and the big wheels, I was thinking, wouldn't it have been nice if that tornado came and blew the goat clear to Arkansas? Yeah. By that time I'd had it, really. I'd written so much about the goat in my column it was famous, and people were driving by constantly honking and pointing and gawking, and everywhere I went were the goat milk jokes. So it was time. I put another note in my column. Free goat. First come, first serve. And believe it or not, there was one sucker. And I was excited when he came, but then I hesitated. The goat had brought our whole neighborhood together. I was going to miss that. I wavered. I was recalcitrant, you could say. Then I handed him the rope. There's something in his eye that told me he needed the milk. Mr. Toastmaster.
Time up. Please give us 2 minutes for the evaluation. Timer. Which speakers qualify?
The speakers that qualify are both Mr. Hudaifa and Mr. Emery.
So we'll vote now for the best speaker out of Emery and Hudaifa. So now we'll move on to the evaluation section, and I'll hand you over to the general evaluator, Dennis Gomez.
Thanks, Fraser. Thanks, everyone. Now we are beginning the evaluation portion of our meeting. First of all, we will be calling upon each of our evaluators to make sure that they are giving a thorough review so they cannot, without recalcitrating any of their issues that they've had personally with any of the speeches. That was a big try right there. Massive fail, but that's okay. I'll try it. On that note, let's get our first evaluator, Art Atkinson. Give him a welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Good evening, Toastmasters, guests, viewers at home, most especially Hy-Vee. Well, he announced his specific objective for the speech, and that was that by the end of the speech you would be able to make an informed decision about which kind of free service you wanted to choose. So, may I see a show of hands? Who's clear about the process and knows how they would make those informed choices based on the information that he gave? Okay. That's, in my opinion, the crux of the matter. Now, what I really liked about this speech was the fact that he is supremely confident and able to really clearly explain the very sophisticated data mining techniques that one category of free services, exemplified by Google, he was able to explain that in great detail and make it clear what's going on behind the scenes when you use their free service. So that was done very well. The difficulty with the talk was, in my opinion, that overshadowed the description of the alternative methods used by other free services. So I was left feeling like I understood the Google category of free service pretty thoroughly, but I didn't have a clear idea of how the other operated and which ones were examples of it and how I would make an informed choice to use them. So my suggestion is to balance the two parts of the presentation more evenly so that the Google category doesn't overshadow the other. Now, he was supremely confident, there was great vocal projection, and he did something which is an advanced technique that he has learned and already implemented, in that he uses staging. He was over here describing the sophisticated Google data mining techniques, and he was over here describing another category which I'm actually at a loss to really adequately explain to you. So his clarity of explanation was excellent. His vocal projection was excellent. His staging was excellent. And a little bit of attention to how much time is available to explain both and to give people what you promised to give, which is clarity about how they would make an informed choice to use the services. That would be my suggestion for how to improve this speech, which is already good. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Now we will have our second evaluator step up to the podium and give us his thoughts. Mr. Will Burns.
Thank you, Dennis. Fellow Toastmasters, honored and distinguished guests, and viewers at home. Well, Emery was doing an advanced manual speech, and he acted like it, using many of his natural talents as an entertaining speaker. I'm going to use the points from the manual. What indicated to me that the audience was entertained? Well, I feel like your title really hooked us from the start, and your natural storytelling ability kept us interested and entertained throughout. Briefly describe the organization as I perceived it. You got a bright idea, you got a goat, you had misadventures with that goat, you rejected the goat, and then you had regret, possibly, about the goat. That's a rough organization to me. How effectively did the speaker use vivid description and anecdotes in this speech? Well, Emery, I could picture that goat tangled up in the garage while the sky churned outside. I think that was a really good use of descriptors to keep me engaged. A couple suggestions. Just be careful about creating a rift with the goat, with your fellow goat-owning audience. When you ask who owns a goat, and they raise their hands, you can say, "So, you understand what this talk's about then?" or something. They kind of bring that. You don't have to make it antagonistic and say, "Well, you don't understand what, my troubles." Also, I would have liked if you would reiterate the community improvement, because I felt like that was a good point that you had earlier about how it basically brought the community together. Just saying, yeah, this gave me a chance to see Clyde. It was a great topic for discussion with my neighbors. And I was made the local Lions attendance officer or something to that effect. But I feel, Emery, that your strongest asset as an entertaining speaker is your natural storytelling ability and your ability to use foreshadowing, this idea of the goat getting milked or needing to be milked throughout the speech to kind of set that up. Again, it's always a pleasure to hear you spin a yarn, and I'm looking forward to hearing your next speech. Thank you, Emery.
Thank you, Will. Next up, we will be, sorry about that, we will be talking about our table topics. And our table topics today is all about creativity. Give a warm welcome to Mr. Louis Denmo.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. This is our fun part of the meeting because anyone can participate, including our guests. Table topics. You have 30 seconds to think about the answer to the question, and then 2 to 3 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes, and then 30 seconds to wrap up. So who would like to be our first volunteer? Someone who doesn't have a role tonight? Come on up.
All right. Okay. Pick a number.
Pick a number, yes.
All right.
But it's got to be 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Good questions. Let's go with 2.
Great choice.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Do you think people are born creative, or do they develop their creativity as they grow?
All right, thank you. That's a good question. All right. Table topics: master, Toastmasters, guests, and viewers at home. I don't think you're a guest anymore. I think you're a member. Anyways, 2 guests and viewers at home. I am a Leo, and a lot of us are probably Leos in this room or have some Leo characteristics. And Leos are super creative. They love to take a situation and see the opportunities instead of the logical way to accomplish it. So if you give me a job, I will do whatever it takes to get the job done. And I think that quality became active in my life after college and lots of living and experience and hard work and studying. So I don't think you're born with that quality. I think it has to come through experience, because creativity, for example, here's an example, just bring it grounded here. Creativity, you have a sport, right? Let's say football, and you're there, you got 4 people in front of you, and you got 4 people on your line. You have to get the ball from here to the end zone, right? I mean, you think, all right, you got plays, you got Hail Mary, you've got all these plays that you've seen on TV, but ultimately, if you can trick the other team or trick yourself, whatever it takes, you have to get the ball to the end zone. And I feel like football, creativity, like the sport of football, is a great example of creativity. And I did not have any genes in that sport. My parents were not football players. My grandparents were not football players. And yet sometimes I surprise myself. And sometimes I surprise myself. And I think that comes from a lot of effort and a lot of recalcitrant determination and just hard work through all the sports that I've played in my life. So it is a learned characteristic. Creativity.
Who would like to be next? All right. All right, pick a number, 1, 3, or 4. 3. 3. Do you prefer your right hemisphere of your brain, your artistic side, or do you prefer your left hemisphere, your logical side?
I tend to have a habit of using my left side. So I guess I could say I prefer my left side, but I try to use both sides equally. That's my goal, I try to be as creative as possible which is, I guess, mostly the right hemisphere. And I try to use the left hemisphere as logically as possible and do things in a way that makes sense. I guess a good example is playing a card game, competitive card game, not poker. Well, it could work in poker too, but more of a Prawn and I were talking about a game called Hearthstone, and similar games like that where you use the creativity of the right side of your brain to come up with the idea for a deck to use, and then you have to use the left side to logically execute it and make the right plays. I'm faced with that kind of situation a lot in my day-to-day life. The interesting thing about this question, though, is I learned about the right and left hemispheres of the brain when I was teaching meditation, and I don't really know if that's proven. It's like they say right hemisphere, okay, this is artistic, left hemisphere is logical. So I feel like your brain is one unit, and I did learn something interesting though, is that a dolphin never has to sleep because they can use, they can shut off parts of their brain and have those parts sleep basically while they're still awake, so they never have to sleep. So I wish I was a dolphin. That's nice. Thanks.
Who's next? All right, Mindy. Hello. So we're down to 1 or 4?
How about 4?
4, okay, you got it. If you could wave a magic wand and instantly have a new talent to create, what talent would that be, and what would you do?
Okay. Hello, Toastmasters, guests, and everyone in there, out there, in there. So, if I could come up with any creative talent, I would be a singer that could radiate happiness and health. And I could just look at you and sing you a Guns N' Roses medley, and you would just be the happiest, healthiest person who ever lived, and all of your illnesses and sadness would be gone forever. And all I would have to do is just sing a song. I just make a song up for everyone, and it would just make everything better. And that's all I have to say about that.
Good.
Oh
Thank you. Sounds like a great talent. I think we have time for one more. Who would like to go? All right, you don't get a choice.
I don't get a choice.
No, you're going to get question number 1. Are you ready?
Yes,
Okay.
but I get 30 seconds.
You do get 30 seconds from the time I finished reading you the topics. Describe a time when you were successful thinking outside of the box. Describe a time when you were successful thinking outside of the box.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topic Masters. Thank you to myself, I'm the guest, and the other guest, and viewers at home. I wasn't born in a box. I've been out of the box my entire life. So it's with great difficulty I think of telling you everything that I've ever done. Just about. Because when I've tried to be in the box, I've been a total failure. I've thought of things to do in the box. I go out and I get excited about a new business. I invest, let's say $10,000 in a new business. I borrow some money from my mother, from my brother, and anybody else I can find, and then I do the new business. I made $10,000 from that business at the end of the year. I did 10 mortgage loans. I made $1,000 a piece. I made $10,000. The only issue is I had rent of $200 a month. And my esteemed colleague said that I owed them $5,000. And I had, I think I had paid $5,000 for that business, and so I was about $10,000 in the hole. Every time I've gone to do a business, it's probably to avoid doing my talents in life. So I finally given up on trying to think within the box, and I've gone out of the box, which is to do some of my healing work. I'm a massage therapist, and I don't do it for money because I feel I should bring healing to people. I'm hoping, though, that by people attaching a price to it, that I will be successful at making enough money to survive in this town. So that's my shameless promotion I promised you before. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
All right, so, Madam Timer, please let us know the names of those who qualified in the Table Topics speeches.
Tonight for Table Topics, everyone qualified. That'd be Prana, Orion, Mindy, and Veda.
All right, so please vote for the best table topic speaker. Everyone had an opportunity to vote. Okay, I'd like to turn the meeting back over to our general evaluator.
Now here is a portion of the meeting where we will be having our evaluator of table topics. talk about everything that he just heard from you guys. Give a warm welcome, Mr. Dan Craig.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, viewers at home. Miranda, could we reset the light? Our first speaker was Prana. He was going to speak about whether we're born creative or it's developed. My first suggestion for Prana is to take some time to consider what you're going to say. Maybe you were inspired and didn't need it, but you maybe could have used it. I like that you started out by saying, I'm a Leo, I'm super creative. And you started talking about, let's see, can't quite read my writing there, so I'll skip to the next thing. The next suggestion, though, was that after you talked about being a Leo and how you had developed through experience, then you moved over into football, and it got a little hazy at that point. So I think the suggestion is it's better to kind of get on one track and follow it and conclude, rather than take an angle away. But you did have a conclusion. You said it's a learned characteristic. Our next speaker was Orion. My first praise for him is that he took some time to consider what he wanted to say about whether he preferred his right or his left side of the brain. It turns out you didn't greet the audience, which is usually a good thing to do, to pull everybody into your talk. You said it's my habit to use my left, but I try to use both. And then you gave a good example of playing poker. And I believe there was some other card game or some game that you referred to, and you said use the creative side of your mind to develop your strategy and your logical side to execute it. I thought that was a very interesting angle. In your case, I think it would have been better to kind of wrap up in that vein rather than talk a little bit about meditation and dolphins. But I did like the dolphins conclusion. Our next speaker was Mindy. Mindy, had you done a Table Topics before?
Just last week.
Okay, I missed that one. I was vacationing. Did a very strong job, very nice. I don't think I have any suggestions for you, but I noticed a lot of good things. You took some time to think about what you wanted to say. You greeted the audience with some humor. You told us that you wanted to be a singer that radiated happiness and health just by singing a song. That was a cool idea. I guess the one thing I'd suggest is you ended with, that's all I've got to say, which is not the strongest conclusion. It's better to refer back to what you were speaking of. And then Veda, our last speaker, describe a time you were successful thinking out of the box. I really like that you said, I've been out of the box my entire life. Well, suggestion, take a little time. I don't know if it was you or another speaker that had this interchange with the topics master. I get my 30 seconds right and then didn't take it. Maybe that was somebody else. I liked the business example that gave a good illustration of what you were speaking of. And I enjoyed the fact that you wrapped up with a shameless promotion as you had promised. Thank you.
Timer, please let us know which evaluators qualified.
All evaluators qualified. That would be Art, Will, and Dan.
Okay, great. Please vote for which evaluator you think did best. Go for votes. Okay. Thank you, everybody. This is the next part of our meeting. It's going to be just getting the reports. And first of all, give a great applause to our timer today. Miranda, you've done a great job.
more creative having just attended. Hy-Vee speech on the internet, it was 7 minutes and 24 seconds. Emery and his goat's tail was 6 minutes and 25 seconds. On our table topics, Prana was at 2 minutes and 16 seconds. Orion, you were at 2 minutes, 7 seconds. Mindy, I'd let you sing to me any day. 1 minute and 6 seconds. And Veda, 1 minute and 58 seconds. With our evaluators, Art was 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Will was 2 minutes, 24 seconds. And Emery, yes, Dan, was 3 minutes and 24 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda. Well done. Next up, a grammarian will give her report. Jean Symington Craig. Thank you.
First, our word usage for the day. Excuse me, Emery used it once, and I'm going to say correctly or not correctly, because that is important. It's a harder word to work in. If you were really trying to be recalcitrant, you would deliberately not use it correctly in defiance of the grammarian. But I don't think anybody had that problem today. I just think people generally were stumbling a little bit, but that's okay. And that leads me, stumbling, to Dennis, who really, in my book, if you at least try, that has some value. Even if it's a belly flop or a massive fail, as Dennis described it. I think it was actually maybe a different word. But at any rate, kudos for trying. And now when you try it, you can go home and look up at it on the internet, look at it and read it a little bit and start to incorporate it in, because that's a word you can try.
Cool.
Well, there you go.
Thinking out of the box.
Okay, and then Prana used it, and I gave him credit, recalcitrant determination, because it gave me the feeling that people were trying to get him to go in one direction, and he was resistant and a little bit pushing off and defiant, and that helped him with his development of his creativity. I think that's the flavor I got. It was another attempt. It was, but it wasn't a massive failure. You don't mind if I played with you a little bit on that, do you?
Yeah.
No. Okay, good. Okay. So I thought it was good. It was a good one.
It's okay.
All right. And then in terms of word usage, I wanted to mention a couple things to Hy-Vee, but of course English is second language, so we might follow up afterwards a couple of things. There's one thing, million of million of million, and those would be plurals. You'd say millions of millions of millions. That's just one thing I heard. And there's also something just on a pronunciation standpoint, and people from other countries, I've heard this. It's English, we have developers, we have development, and I think so the accent's on the second syllable, and I think sometimes we, from other countries, have people say development, or developer. It was like the accent's on the first syllable, and I don't know if that's proper English somewhere else, because Americans are known to butcher their own language. Will is the only other notice I had, because he did say, talked about this goat tied up while the sky churned outside, and I don't think Emery used that word churn, and I
wish I had.
I know, it was really, so that's the kind of word usage that I'm looking for when I'm a grammarian, an adjective or a verb that just really socks it. So that was the one that I picked up for Will. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Jean. Next up, Mr. Peter Armstrong, our counter. Put out all our flowers.
Anyway. Tonight's meeting reinforced something that I've noticed before, which is that in Toastmasters, experience counts. and that there's a value to having experience, because as we go along and get the experience, apparently we learn not to say those words and to use the filler words that we just don't. So many of the people who spoke tonight just came away with a perfectly clean bill of health, but I just said, it's a very hard habit to break. Miranda, you and I each had a few, just a few. Hudaifa, there was a pause, one or two pauses. I didn't hear any ahs or uhs, but just a little bit of downtime while you thought about your next speech, next part of the speech. Will, I heard one Lewis, one so. Prana, a few ahs or uhs, and one so. Orion also. There, okay. Mindy, one ah. And Veda, one And that's it.
Thank you, Peter. Well done. Next up, to open the box of the funny zone, our joke master, Miranda.
Tonight I chose a creative topic for our jokes, and it's about being Zen. A Zen student goes into the temple and says to the Zen master, "I want to dedicate my entire life to gaining enlightenment, but how long do you think it'll take?" Zen master says, 10 years. The student goes, okay, what if, that's a long time, what if I really dedicate, I put all my efforts, all my focus into gaining enlightenment, how long will it take then? Zen master looks, thinks deep inside and goes, 20 years. A Zen master and his student are crossing a river. The Zen master makes it to the other side when all of a sudden the current gets stronger and rushes by. The student calls out, "Master, how do I get to the other side?" And the master calls back, "You are on the other side." And last but not least, there are 3 students and they're fighting over whose Zen master is the best. The first one goes, "My Zen master is so disciplined, he goes days without eating." The second student goes, "My master is so amazing, he goes days without sleeping." Third student goes, "My Zen master's the best. He eats when he's tired and sleeps when he's hungry."
Thank you, Miranda. That was a great last, especially the last Zen master. I just think we can all take great examples from him. Yeah, just eat when I'm hungry. That's what it's about. Now time for me, I believe, to criticize the evaluators themselves. Let's start with Art. Art, where are you? Art, very well done job today. I really enjoyed hearing everything Hudaifa had to hear and had to say, and you heard him, I can see, with the way you evaluated him. I would say one type of improvement, first up, is when you welcome him in the beginning, try to say, rather than, "Please help me welcome Hudaifa," just say, "Hey, welcome Hudaifa." Just a little bit more of a commanding tone when you are getting him up there to make his speech. I would say, though, the way you overall introduced him was very good. You went through the main points. The way that you questioned, now going to the evaluation itself, the way that you questioned the whole audience about the clarity of how many of you were convinced about whether you can make a more informed decision or not online. That's very good, because you're getting right to the point of what's the main point of the speech. What am I getting out of this? So you're seeing about half and half the audience, their opinion on the speech in general, about how much they gained. One I think part I would see an improvement on your evaluation was there's one section where you said, in my opinion. In my opinion, that's subjective, but we all know it's your opinion. I think in my opinion, to keep it concise, which I just did it myself, try to leave my opinion out of it, because you just say what you think in front of the whole audience. Although I just did it myself. Complimenting the way that he was very confident. He was very clear. His projection was excellent. That is very well done. Great job at that, and I think it's very important that you have really emphasized on his strong points, because that is a strong point and it's very important with giving a speech in general. Well done there. The overview of the main topics that Hudaifa discussed was very well done also. Well done, Art. Will. There you are, Will. To start up, the way that you pointed out the humor of the goat, just the goat in the story, naturally I know that's going to be funny. And you did a great job of capitalizing on that. And that was definitely a strong point, I would say, of Emery's speech. One improvement for you would be to say things a little bit slower at times when you're up here. There are a couple phrases, I'm not pinpointing all of them out yet, but you were speaking so quick, I was like, whoa, what's he saying? And then bang, he's right here. Another point. That sometimes slow down a little bit at points in your speech, in your eval. One really strong point that you made was complimenting the ornamental language of how Emery was able to get us to visualize everything that was going on. I felt like I could see myself seeing a neighbor with a new goat. Just the way that you're evaluating that, and you picked up on that very well. Well done. And another point of improvement for you, Will, would be just looking at your notes a little bit less. Although I'm doing it right now again, so there I go. But in general, try to see if you can reduce the amount of eye contact with notes, more eye contact with the crowd. Your compliment of the overall speech relating to the audience and how Emery did a great job at relating everything with, hey, how many of you have had a goat, being able to make everybody visualize it, that was very well kept, and great job pointing that out. Dan, I would say the way you set the tone, Dan, the cameraman. You set the tone very well for Prana's speech with how you point out Leo and everything surrounding Leo in general. Sometimes, again, an improvement for you, just like Will, would be looking at the notes too much, which I'm doing right now, but looking at the notes, again, is something that we all tend to do as evaluators naturally. Point, sometimes also, another really good point that you made was that Orion should greet the audience when you were talking about how Orion did his table topics. And that's important, so you're able to get that out. This is a general technical functionality you should be doing as a Toastmaster. Well done there. Suggestions. There was one little bit of a awkward moment when you were evaluating Mindy's evaluation. You did a great job at overall how you were evaluating, but the fact that at the beginning you said, I don't have a suggestion, and then later you have one, try to see if you can be more consistent with that part of your evaluation. And then another great point of your speech, of your evaluation, was how you managed to point out how Veda did a great example with just how you can apply thinking out of the box to business in general. Being able to deal with people, being able to pay everything on time, or making sure that money goes where it needs to go. Great job there. Thank you, evaluators. So, we'll be having our awards part of the meeting. Give Fraser a warm welcome.
Welcome back, and we'll be giving 4 awards, and let's have a drum roll. Best keeper was Emery.
I thank you, and my goat thank you.
Moving on, Best table topic. Mindy. Drum roll once more for best evaluator. And that would be Will. And for Hudaifa, we have the ribbon for competent, the get to the point from the competent. And with that, I'll turn you over to the president, and it's
Thank you for your attendance, everybody. It's been good to see the room relatively full today. Everybody trying to think more outside the box, get some more ideas, bounce it off each other. Good to see everybody. First of all, let's hear from our guests. Guests who are familiar with Toastmasters, but guests nonetheless. Glad to have both of you. Just tell us your thoughts about the meeting.
I thought the speeches were really good and interesting in completely, entirely different ways. They were just totally different topics and styles, and it was just interesting to hear them back to back.
Great. Thank you, Mindy.
Tonight I've thoroughly enjoyed being here. I've been a sporadic Toastmaster, I must admit, for over 30 years. And I'm hoping to sporadically come back in and start by being a regular guest for a little while. And I hope that that will lead me to the conclusion that I can rejoin within a fairly brief amount of time.
Thank you guys. Good to hear your thoughts. How many of you guys mentioned Toastmasters this week? Yeah, everybody. Nice. You guys did? Okay, so you guys are doing some recruiting out there, some aggressive recruiting. Good. Good to see that. Now we have an announcement from Will Burns. We have some business to do with inducting some new members.
Mr. Sergeant at Arms, could you escort our inductee out of the room? We have one inductee. Miranda.
She's recalcitrant.
Yeah.
She was shopping for Toastmaster appliances.
Okay, well, spoiler alert, you passed with flying colors. Miranda, membership in Toastmasters is a privilege, and the only way to gain the benefits of our program is to actively participate. Do you, Miranda Goddard, promise to be an active member of this club, to attend meetings regularly, and to prepare fully for your duties?
Yes.
All right. Do you, the members of Golden Speakers Toastmasters, promise to support Miranda as she works through the Toastmasters program?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Then it is my pleasure to declare you installed as a member of Golden Speakers. Welcome. Now, continue with our further business. Thank you very much, Miranda. I will call up our president and chair.
Thanks, Will. Thanks, Will, and thanks for everybody's opinion. It's good to circulate the ideas so we get the best deal for everybody. Any other business anybody else has? Briefly, I'd like to mention Jean Symington Craig has done a fantastic job making sure that we got this ribbon right here to make sure that we all get the credit from last year. You guys did a fantastic job.
This is the top level of performance in Toastmasters International, and that shows that we did that for last year.
Yeah, so well done, Jean. So your leadership is very good, and your advice is very helpful right now too for all of us at the moment, and as always. So we appreciate it. It's a re-announcement from last week's, but now that you're here this week, I'd like to give a special thank you to you because you're doing a great job at advising all of us. It's all of us as officers right now. Any other business? Okay.
One officers.
Be sure you fill this out. All of you who have done roles and officers, please meet. There'll be a 5 to 15 minute meeting after this. We need to talk about some progress on our goals. Thank you.